The committee hearing to order, and will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Schaefer.
Here.
Vice Chair Kaler.
Here.
Ranking Member Hicks Hudson. Senator Landis checked in. Senator Liston.
Here.
Senator Manchester. Senator Reynolds. Senator Wilkin checked in. We do have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Great. The minutes from February 10th hearing are on your iPads. If you've had a chance to review the minutes, are there any objections or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as published. I'd like to now call for your attention to the governor's appointments, and I'll read off the individuals that we have. I know their materials have been circulated last week to the committee members. For Stephen R. Bergman, Petroleum Underground Storage Tank Release Compensation Board. Brian J. Bouchard, Ohio Environmental Education Fund Advisory Council. Scott J. Fleming, Petroleum Underground Storage Tank Release Compensation Board. Brad H. Hilliard, Petroleum Underground Storage Tank Release Compensation Board. Mark K. Papke, Ohio Environmental Education Fund Advisory Council. James R. Rocco, Petroleum Underground Storage Tank Release Compensation Board. Gary C. Tenafris, Waterways Safety Council, and Amy L. Weiskettle, the Ohio Environmental Education Fund Advisory Council. So materials have been circulated. They're also on your iPads, members. And are there any nominees for appointment here today that would like to say something? Like to introduce themselves? Okay, saying not. With that concluded, what is the pleasure of the committee? The chairman recognizes Vice Chair Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we approve the governor's appointments, favorably report them to the Committee on Rules and Reference.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the appointments? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Schaefer.
Yes.
Vice Chair Kaler.
Yes.
Ranking Member Hicks Hudson. Senator Landis. Senator Liston.
Yes.
Senator Manchester. Senator Reynolds. Senator Wilkin. 5-0.
And we do have the votes. We'll keep that roll open until 5 p.m. Okay, thank you. Very good. So we will send that report on to the Committee on Rules and Reference. I'll now like to call House Bill 4033 up for its first hearing and sponsor testimony. And joining us are Representatives Roy Klopfenstein and Sarah Arthur Fowler. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you, Senator Schaefer, Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chair Kaler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. Thank you for hearing sponsored testimony today on House Bill 433, legislation that will update Ohio's amusement ride inspection fee structure. This proposal is the result of a thoughtful collaboration and shared commitment to fairness.
Tell on my list, and members, we do have written testimony from 51 additional, but the 14 folks here, I want to make sure we have an opportunity to say what you like to say. So what I need to do is put a 3-minute limit on everyone's testimony. And please, if you can get said what you can say in 3 minutes, that's great. But I don't want to send anybody home that doesn't have a chance to testify. That would be not what I want to do. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to be heard. So if I can figure this out, we have new software, folks. So, then hit start. Okay, we'll give this a try. If you can do it, yeah.
I'll be the bad guy.
So in the past, we would use a simple egg timer, but yeah, we got a little more sophisticated timer here. But anyway, I would like to call up first Jenny Morgan, citizen of Ohio.
I have to do this if you want me to.
Well, thank you.
Before she starts.
I requested this because I'm a teacher and I work, but I got a substitute. So I appreciate you.
Well, welcome.
I so appreciate that. Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair, Ranking Member, Committee members. I've been working on this for 15 years to get it into 3 minutes. I just don't know. But I will try. So I'm Jenny Morgan. I'm a preschool teacher, a longtime environmental public health advocate. Like others here today, I've been working 15 years on this. That's when I uncovered industry studies dating back decades and on the very concerning high radium levels in the oil and gas brine waste. Industry leaders started realizing brine waste has high levels of radium as far back as in the 30s. Awareness of these high levels of radium would drive the creation of the Ohio Injection Well program many years later. Experts agreed this brine waste is too toxic to keep disposing of it on the ground and in our waterways. It must be re-injected back into the deep underground via Class II wells. In 2011, I also learned about the infamous 1985 law. That's when our Ohio legislators decided, let's use some of this radioactive brine waste for de-icing and dust suppression. Why not? After all I had learned, the studies, the injection well program, I thought to myself, how in God's name could anyone have allowed this stuff on our roads? How could they vote to regularly expose millions of Ohio citizens, including children, to radioactive toxic oil and gas waste? I was outraged, as were others, and we set out to change it. To think we can change this. At long last, this 40-year mistake is a dream. It has taken 40 years too long. How many children have gotten sick from these radium exposures? How many of us, your family members, have gotten lung cancer, breast cancer, leukemia from this? We'll never know, but I guess it would be a lot. The fact that this legislation has taken this long is shameful and tragic, but Senate Bill 329 gives you each a chance to right this wrong. Did you know in 2016, Governor Kasich declared an oil and gas state of emergency? He issued Executive Order 2016-04K. This emergency required, he said, the immediate adoption of rules and a new 24/7 hotline. One rule included the mandatory reporting within 30 minutes of all oil and gas brine waste releases of 42 gallons or more outside the secondary containment area and into the environment. Why this 30-minute reporting? Because brine waste can be so toxic and radioactive, ODNR, the Ohio EPA, and other responding agencies have to immediately respond. So here's the elephant in the room. How can brine waste be so toxic? Spills must be reported immediately. So toxic it must be re-injected deep in the earth and at the same time be acceptable for de-icing and dust suppression. Do you hear the insanity in this contradiction? You have a mountain of evidence before you, and experts more than I will testify on. I was going to list the 10, but I'm going to save time. Beneficial use, they said in 85, someone please tell me how children benefit from ongoing exposure to accumulating radium. Finally, now you know that the Ohio Turnpike Association and ODNR, they have discontinued the use. And Chair, I did send those minutes that I secured from the Turnpike Association back in 2021 to your office. Thanks to the long 15-year movement on this issue, we are here now and we are grateful. So, what other evidence do you need to cast a yes vote? Again, someone else will list those 10 things that I had. The studies from ODNR of the high radium levels. If you're hanging on to well-crafted industry PR lines you've been given along the way, you might want to stop repeating them if you don't want to look uneducated. Brine is just harmless ancient seawater. Sure, it's seawater with lots of radium and dangerous heavy metals. Not harmless. Radioactive? Big deal. Bananas are radioactive. Potassium-40 in bananas, and you ask about this, Chair, emit beta particles and barely interact with the body. Radium emits alpha, which can swiftly mutate cells. The other, don't worry, radium is naturally occurring. We hear that a lot. Sure, uranium is too, and arsenic and lead and radon and deadly mushrooms. They're all naturally occurring. They're just spreading brine waste from vertical wells. That's not radioactive. We debunked that by having ODNR test that. That was debunked a long time ago. Every year in Ohio, nearly 600 children are diagnosed with cancer. Walk through Children's Hospital and your heart will break. What did these children do to be handed this fate? They didn't drink alcohol or smoke. Our children are exposed to hundreds of toxins before they're born and after every day. Their little systems are overwhelmed with toxins. Why would we add to their body burden when a stroke of a pen could give them some relief? What are the pathways for the radium? Eating the snow when the brine is put on the sidewalks. I told my kids not to do it. They eat the snow anyway. They don't use brine at my, gas and oil brine at my school. Believe me, I checked. So the food in the farms, when it migrates, breathing in the radium, the particulate matter when it goes into the air, the radium, breathing it in when it's tracked into houses, when animals take it on the furniture, drinking the radium when it migrates to waterways. All we have to do is think about it. To give perspective, some brine was spilled back in 2016 into the Barnesville Reservoir. The reservoir holds 90 million gallons of water. Less than 5,000 gallons of oil brine waste was spilled. 90 million gallons of water was not enough to dilute. Less than 5,000 gallons of brine in the reservoir was closed for 2 months. Who would knowingly choose to expose children to radium? Who would do that? No one. No one would do that. Now that you know oil and gas brine waste is radioactive, often highly, and that this is not hyperbole or crazy liberals making things up, I'm confident you will all vote yes on this bill. If you don't, I fear every time someone you love is diagnosed with cancer, or if you are, you'll wonder, was it the brine waste? Should I have voted yes? Finally, if you're thinking you'll vote no to save some money because radioactive waste is cheap or even free, trust me, no mom or father would want you to do that. In conclusion, in 2021, I met with Senator Hoagland. There was a bill at the time to commodify gas and oil waste. I met with him, and he invited the ODNR chief. He invited the ODNR radioactive expert. The senator had one big question for the chief. He said, if this stuff is so hazardous, why isn't there a hazmat symbol on the brine truck? To which the ODNR chief replied, the brine trucks should have the hazmat symbol, sir, but the EPA exempted oil and gas from this hazmat designation decades ago. But make no mistake, the chief said oil and gas brine waste is radioactive. It contains a slew of dangerous heavy metals, including radium. I'm almost done. Senator Hoagland said, well, if it's that bad, this stuff shouldn't be on the roads at all, to which the chief said, well, Senator, some Ohio leaders back in 1985 decided gas and oil brine could be used on the roads, and so we, ODNR, had to do our best to create the regulations for it. We'd be more than happy to work with you, sir, to get this stuff off the roads, all of it. But SB329, back then, he said, is the first issue at hand. You can right the wrongs of your predecessors. You can honor those who have been sickened by this radioactive exposure. You can protect our children. Vote yes for children's health. Vote yes to giving Ohio children long, healthy lives. Vote yes for keeping radium out of their precious bones, lungs, drinking water, and air. Stand up for the protection of our children, your grandchildren, your children. Stand up and say enough. Now is the time to end this oil and gas radioactive brine waste nightmare. Citizens are watching. Everyone knows you are now informed. You're going to be. I didn't get to list my 10 things, but I know the expert in these rooms will. Stand up and say enough. Now is the time. Citizens are watching, and I pray you do the right thing and vote yes. I thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wait, we might have questions.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions from the committee? Sorry. No questions, but thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, please, we want to consider these pieces of legislation in a pure environment. So what I want to do right now is take a break from this legislation and call up, because we have so many witnesses to go through, I need to call up House Bill 134 for sponsored testimony from Representative Gross and Representative Humphrey. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll just mention that you will see our committee members coming and going. That's because we have other obligations, other committees to try and cover. So that does happen. And the two ladies from the House worked with us to make sure they're trying to get here over between committees and session as well. So together we can work it all out. So back to Senate Bill 329. Next up, Anton Krieger from Buckeye Environmental Network. You want this on? Sure. Yeah, thanks. And welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kaler, Ranking Member Hicks-Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. I thank you for your opportunity to provide testimony, proponent testimony, on Senate Bill 329 to prohibit the disposal of conventional well brine on roadways managed by local governments as outlined in 1509.226 of the Ohio Revised Code. I've been working on the issue of oil and gas waste spreading with Buckeye Environmental Network for about 4.5 years now. And while I would not consider myself an expert, I would consider myself quite learned. Attached with my testimony are 3 archived articles from 1986. They discuss the issue of road spreading that was instituted by a lot of local governments during that time. 2 of these articles were from the Columbus Dispatch, and 1 was from the Akron Beacon Journal. All 3 of these talk about the controversy of road spreading, but on the basis of benzene and not radioactivity. Back in 1986, when these articles were written, Ohio Department of Natural Resources Division of Oil and Gas did not know about the radioactive contents of oil and gas waste. And this is something that ODNR openly admits. It's posted right on their website where they summarize their well brine study from 2017 and 2018 that looked at oil and gas waste across 26 different counties in Ohio and 10 different formations. And I just want to read a small excerpt. I copy and pasted the full from the website. Prior to the study, the general assumption was that elevated radium-226 and radium-228 concentrations were only found in unconventional well brine from the Marcellus, Utica, and Point Pleasant shale plays. This limited scope brine study found that radium-226 and radium-228 concentrations equally as high in the conventional well brine as well. Every single conventional well sampled from this study has exceeded the Ohio Administrative Code's effluent concentration of 60 picocuries per liter for either radium-226 or radium-228. The fact that this practice was legalized before we knew that conventional well brine had concentrations of radioactivity equally as high as those formations warrants revision of this law. This issue is much like asbestos. Even though it was used widely, further studying of this material shows us that it is no longer to be used. Lastly, I'd like to highlight Dr. Burgos' peer-reviewed study from Penn State's Environmental Engineering program. He submitted written testimony highlighting the fact that conventional well waste in the Appalachian Basin, Ohio included, has too high of sodium chloride content to be used as a dust suppressant. The chemistry acts as a clay disperser and softens up unpaved roads, and it leaves them washed out and weak. So this has local governments paying more in long-term road maintenance costs. Dr. Burgos' study is exceptionally pertinent because in my review of hundreds of local governments' annual surface application reports, those are the forms that local governments fill out when they apply brine on their roadways, I found that the general trend is that since 1985, these local governments are moving more towards a dust suppressant and less as a de-icer. And of course, some local governments still use it as a de-icer, but that's the general trend. And so these unpaved roads are getting worse and worse. Senator Schaefer and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, we are here to play ball. This bill is a surgical strikeout to keep us all safe. We hope to work with your offices to get toxic and radioactive oil and gas waste off of the roadways. And I'd like to make myself available to work with any member of the Ohio legislature to get it done. I'm happy to take any questions from committee members. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Liston.
Sorry, kept double pressing the button. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for the passion of everyone here. It's my understanding that this, the usage of brine across the state did change a fair bit in 2021, which I assume is related to many efforts in this room in terms of some outcomes. But I guess I was struck by you saying that it was actually cheaper for local governments. Am I correct in that it would be cheaper for local governments not to be using brine? Is that kind of what I would take from this? And then if so, what am I missing in terms of the choices that the ones that still use the brine are making?
So through Chairman Schaefer to Senator Liston, Ohio Department of Transportation and Ohio Turnpike Commission both discontinued the use of aqua salina. That was a product derived from oil and gas waste, which ODNR studied thoroughly. They found it was highly radioactive and exceeded Ohio Administrative Code. Many local governments apply straight oil and gas waste from conventional wells. It is not commodified and it is not a product, it is a waste product. And so for the small mom and pop producers that have conventional wells, they are taking that oil and gas waste, and instead of injecting it at 5 cents a barrel into a Class II disposal well, they are selling it often $1.50 per barrel to a local government, and that is relatively cheap for a dust suppressant or de-icing service. The long-term road maintenance cost is that oil and gas waste is not really fit to be a dust suppressant, and it's weakening our roadways. Does that answer your question?
The chairman, to clarify, I guess to put it, so it's maybe penny wise but pound foolish in that the long-term impacts, obviously, that we're discussing to health, but then also actually even to the roads is much higher over time.
Through the chair and to Senator Liston, yes, I think it is the high cost of going cheap, and Dr. Burgos from Penn State University study explains that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? I've got a question for you. ODOT uses a liquid. Is that a brine? Is that, that's a brine substance?
Senator Schaefer, I believe that I have spoken to spokesman Matt Bruning from Ohio Department of Transportation, and he mixes fresh water with rock salt, and they check for the perfect level of salinity to maximize pre-treatment levels. And so it's not something that they purchase, but something that they create on their own.
Do they pull it out of the ground in any way, or they have a big tank that they're mixing salt with water? Or
they have they have big brine mixers, Senator Schaefer, and some of the local governments, including Granville and Licking County, they actually applied for an Ohio EPA chloride reduction grant, and they were able to purchase the brine mixer and the spreading trucks and come off of oil and gas waste, which was a win that was celebrated in their community.
And is their brine ever derived out of the salt mines under Lake Erie? Is that used as well? Because it seems to me the water there would be a ready source, but and my understanding has been that is used, but is that radioactive? Or do they not use water or brine from underneath Lake Erie in the salt mines?
My short answer is I do not know.
Okay.
It's my understanding that those formations do not carry the radium-226 and radium-228, but I'm not an expert in that field, Chair.
Could you refer us to somebody that might know? Do you have a network out there?
There are geologists that we've spoken to as the Buckeye Environmental Network, and I would be happy to connect with your office to see.
That's fine. Yeah, that'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Silverio Congiano, Buckeye Environmental Network. I'm sorry. How did I do on your name?
Excellent. Better than some.
Welcome.
Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Senator Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee, I thank you very much for the opportunity to provide testimony on Senate Bill 329, the bill to ban spreading oil and gas waste from conventional well roads. My name is Silverio Cajano. I'm a retired firefighter, paramedic, battalion chief, instructor, hazardous materials, weapons, and mass destruction specialist of 39 years. I also had the honor of sitting on the State of Ohio's Hazardous Materials, Weapons, and Mass Destruction Technical Advisory Team for 16 years, creating policy, education, and capabilities for the state's hazmat and WMD response teams. Today I'm going to discuss the dangers of radium that is contained in conventional oil and gas well brine that is still being used on some of Ohio's locations as rose de-icer. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources found through their own testing conventional oil and gas well brine contains higher than allowable levels of radium-226 and 228. So what does this mean? Let's look at the science. There are primarily three major forms of naturally occurring radiation. They are alpha, beta, and gamma. Alpha and beta are mostly particulate radiation, where gamma is pure energy. Radium-226, which has a half-life of 1,600 years, is primarily alpha with some beta and a little gamma. So, to avoid all the nuclear, quantum, and particle physics, let's enter into what I call Mr. Rogers' nuclear neighborhood. Alpha particle radiation in size and energy is similar to, say, a marble that's tossed at you. The marble is big, and being tossed at you emits very low energy. It will not penetrate the skin or do much damage. Beta particulate radiation is comparably smaller. It's like a BB. It has more energy, like a BB fired from the infamous Red Ryder BB gun. It's going to penetrate a little bit, maybe leave a welt with the penetration, but it's not going to do much to you, maybe leave a mark, and in the profession we call those marks that are left by beta radiation, beta burns. Gamma, being solely pure energy, will not only penetrate a human body, but go right through it, going in between and through the cells. There's really nothing that the body can do to stop it unless it's protected. The primary routes of exposure to all substances are injection, inhalation, ingestion, and absorption. So too with radium-226, which being mainly the bigger, non-skin penetrating alpha particle, is primarily admitted to the body by inhalation or ingestion. The problem with alpha particles being so big is the same quality of the particle that doesn't allow it to penetrate the skin. Once inside the body, doesn't allow it to come back out. So they bounce around inside the body, hitting cells, doing damage until they're eventually eliminated from the body. The problem with the eventual elimination of radium-226 and 228 cations is that the body sees these as calcium, and it takes it right to the bone structures. It'll incorporate the radium-226 and 228 into the bones, and these elements will continue to emit mutagenic radiation from the bone structure for 1,600 years. It is also bioaccumulative. It will never be released from the body, and in each intake will build upon the other. So it's not a matter of, it's going to clean itself. It's going to continue to stay in the body forever, and it's going to continue to emit radiation for 1,600 years, even once the person is deceased. So let's look at this all real world. Let's say a township uses conventional gas and oil well source brine to de-ice the roads. A well-meaning road crew spreads the de-icer on a school bus route to assist the bus in safe picking up of the children. The children eventually come to the road to wait for the bus. As other cars pass by, they aerosolize the radium containing brine, and the children breathe in the mist or get that into their mouth. This is inhalation and ingestion exposure. We now know, from what I've said, what the body will do with that radium intake. Cancers like bone, liver, breast cancers are common with long-term radiation exposure. And I'm not saying long-term they're breathing this stuff in. I'm saying long-term when the radium is incorporated into the bone structure. Leukemias and other various anemias are also common. Madame Marie Curie herself, the discoverer of radium, died from aplastic anemia. Children are twice as likely to suffer from these cancers because of their rapid cellular replication as compared to adults. One mutated cell will rapidly become thousands. The spreader of these brines themselves are at great risk. The people walking on or along the roads are at risk exposure. First responders like myself were at risk of exposure when at an emergency scene on a brine road, and especially when dealing with an accident involving a brine spreader. Bringing your well brine salt covered home is bringing the radium with it. How many people have traveled home from this location on the road, and once they get home, their red car is now white? Imagine that being brine, salted brine on your car, and you're bringing it home. Clothing, especially leather products, when coming in contact with the well brine, salt residue will be contaminated. Washing these contaminated clothes in your home washing spreads contamination further. If that's not bad enough, radium-226 and 228 also off-gases radon, which is another cancer product. This is why many agencies, including the Ohio Department of Transportation, the Ohio Turnpike, have stated they have discontinued its use, and the Ohio Department of Health has stated it should not be used. The Farmers Union has come out against this practice. The risk to human life is not worth the continued use of conventional gas and oil well brine. We can do better. In my opinion, we're not keeping Ohioans safe allowing the use of this conventional well brine to be spread on our roads. This is why I support this bill banning all use of conventional well brine anywhere in Ohio. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Carolyn Harding, radioactive waste alert. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks, Hudson, and members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee. I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Senate Bill 329, the bill to ban spreading oil and gas waste from conventional oil wells on roads. Senate Bill 329 is good for all Ohioans. I'm Carolyn Harding, concerned citizen, founder and co-organizer of Radioactive Waste Alert, and co-organizer with Columbus Community Bill of Rights, and former host and producer of Grassroot Ohio radio podcast, mom, and artist activist. Oil and gas waste, you'll hear over and over again, liquid and solid, is radioactive, especially here in the Utica and Marcellus shales. So this ancient water pulled up before and the processed water pulled up after oil and gas extraction is plain old radioactive. Radium-226, 228 are bone-seeking radionuclides that if ingested or breathed in can cause leukemia, breast cancer, bone cancers. If an Ohio county uses oil and gas water waste due to its salty content for dust and ice control, that salty, radioactive water dries on the road and drains into the yards on either side of the road. Now, when it's dried, the radionuclides are in the dust, and when Ohioans drive along these roads, that dust sucks up into our cars and we breathe it in. When Ohioans are out mowing our lawns on our John Deeres, we churn up the dirt along the side of the road and consequently breathe in radium-226 and 228, and this contaminates our bodies. Now, I have an equestrian daughter at Miami of Ohio. She has a heart horse. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's a horse that's loved beyond any human being. And she drives around a lot on Ohio rural roads to go care for her horse. Yeah, it's personal. I don't want her to be accumulating these radionuclides in her lungs, in her breast, or her bones. And I don't want your football playing grandson or niece or nephew traveling on the bus over Ohio roads breathing in this radioactive dust. And I don't want your aunt who bought a few acres in the country for her retirement to breathe in this radioactive dust, especially since we can ban this process here and now. So, you can see why I'm totally behind banning oil and gas waste spreading on our roads. This is about our families, our loved ones, our property, our health. It's these kind of laws that all Ohioans will benefit from, whether they realize it or not. Thank you for supporting Senate Bill 329.
Well, thank you. Any questions? Very good. Thanks so much for coming in. Next up, Thomas McKnight, citizen of Ohio. And welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks-Hudson, and members of the Senate Agricultural Committee and Resources Committee, thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on SB 329, the bill to ban spreading waste from the Ohio oil field on roads. My name is Tom McKnight. I am a resident of Tuscarawas County, spent a few years hauling brine and working in the oil field pads in the Marcellus Play. The presence of radioactive materials was downplayed during my employment in this industry. I routinely had wetted hands and worked around the hose hookups at the trucks and the tanks during my daily chores. I would routinely sit at the back of the truck, snacking or eating my lunches while I loaded brine, and I sure wasn't worried about what I thought was just a little salt water. Had I known the hazards and been provided proper training and equipment, I most certainly would not have handled brine with such disregard. As it turns out, in 2019, doctors discovered that I had developed cancer. The cancer is thymoma, a type of lung cancer. Since then, I've had 4 major operations, and very well could be looking at my 5th shortly. And that's not why I'm here today, though. Today, I'm here to urge you to consider passing SB329 to keep your constituents, neighbors, friends, and family members safe from the possibility of them being poisoned. The oil-field brine being spread on the roadways has been found to contain radiation levels many times the rates that our own state has determined to be unsafe. Each time the roads have this radioactive brine spread, the amount will increase. These roads run through neighborhoods and farmland. Emergency workers, construction workers, law enforcement, even kids standing by the road waiting for a bus all have the opportunity to breathe in the dust when the wind blows or the vehicles drive by. Livestock grazing, crops, vegetables will all be dosed with the radioactive dust. And the brine that runs off is going to continue to contaminate our water supply and affect every ecosystem that it enters. I'm no scientist nor researcher, and they know all the details, and you'll hear all about that today, but I want to point out a couple anecdotal things that I know. I have provided dust control on roads leading into active well sites, and I used only fresh water. If it was safe to use brine, I'm sure the oil companies would have used it. But I applied only fresh water to those gravel roads. And finally, I feel strongly that there are other actions happening that will force the oil waste industry to start recognizing the radiation that they have specifically been exempted from since the Benson and Beville Amendment provided in 1980. Adopting SB 329 will show that you have all acted proactively in the best interest of the public to keep our communities and future generations safe and healthy. Thank you for letting me provide this testimony.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you coming in. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Okay.
Next up, folks. Next up, Robert Cluse, Fact, Ohio. And did I pronounce that right? Cluse?
Nobody gets it right. It's
Close.
like, I tell people it's like the president, and they say Roosevelt, and I say never mind.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Tim Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kyle Kaler, Ranking Member Paula Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, thank you for the opportunity to witness against the spreading of radioactive oil and gas waste on roads in Ohio. I am Bob Close, retired pastor of the community of St. Peter in Cleveland's Fairfax and Midtown neighborhoods. I am also the president of Fact Ohio, Faith Communities Together for a Sustainable Future. This body relies on trust of the Ohio residents. Apparently, some of you believe that spraying radioactive brine on Ohio roads is a good thing. Good for Ohio, good for our residents, our roads, good for living things in the fields along the roads. Why would I suggest that? Because if it's not good, we shouldn't do it. Over the last few miserable weeks of ice, snow, and frigid temperatures, brine waste was spread on roads in at least 6 counties in Ohio, and over the last decade, more than 4 million gallons of brine waste in Chairman Schaefer's district alone. Have any Ohio legislators ever told their constituents that this was a good practice? The brine is waste. It is from neighboring states and from Ohio. Pennsylvania and West Virginia don't want it, but they figured out what to do with it. They export it to Ohio. There are a number of options when it comes to brine waste, but I think they boil down to just 2. Just spread it wherever we can until it's gone, or stop producing it. If this fracking waste is a threat, a nuisance, an unwanted byproduct of fracking for fossil fuels, This taxpayer wonders why the disposal of this stuff wasn't taken sufficiently into consideration while fracking permits were issued over and over again. The Ohio Departments of Health, Natural Resources, and Transportation have all supplied data that call the spreading of radioactive brine into question. Now we know this scenario is not safe. It is not sustainable. It is therefore not good practice. Unless and until the industry that wants to extract can find a way to deal with the waste in a way that guarantees no risk to the residents of this state, they should stop producing the waste. I am grateful to the Buckeye Environmental Network for their research and initiative in bringing SB 329 to this floor. I urge this body to show their appreciation to the due diligence offered by Buckeye Environmental Network, diligence that helps us all to know better. I urge this body to do better by endorsing Senate Bill 329 to become part of the Ohio Code. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next up, Justin Noble, science journalist. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. And I apologize. I'm a little bit broken up. You know, it's a really special moment to be here, but also in my reporting to have people reach out to me as whistleblowers, to have a worker reach out, interact with this gentleman who is just so kind for years, Tom McKnight, and then to see him come up looking very sharp in a suit and deliver testimony. It's, you know, and he is ill, like he said, so that's a lot, and I appreciate you all for creating this opportunity. Really, thank you. It is an honor. And I think there is an honor on your end as well. You are tasked with protecting the health and safety of the public, and that is a sacred mission. I want to tell you a little story. You may think it has nothing to do with spreading oil and gas wastewater on roads in Ohio, but it has everything. I have a master's degree in earth and environmental science and journalism. I write for Rolling Stone magazine, many other publications, and for the last 9 years, I have been researching and reporting on the issue of the radioactivity brought to the surface in oil and gas development and the harms posed to the environment, the public and communities, and the workers. I gather my information in a number of different ways. I do a deep dive on research, industry, and government documents, and some of those have been presented here today. I've spent significant time in oil and gas communities across the country, including right here in Ohio. And perhaps most importantly, I interact with workers. And I was recently connected to a worker in Texas. His name is Lee Oldham, and Lee had the job of spreading oil and gas drilling waste onto farmland. Now, this is a different waste stream. It's a very concerning waste stream. It can have elevated radioactivity, heavy metals, carcinogens, and this practice is legal in Texas. Lee's concern came about when he learned that it was radioactive, and his coworkers are in trucks, not so different than Tom, cleaning this material out with not appropriate PPE, getting absolutely covered in it. And this is a legitimate exposure concern. When Lee raised that concern, he was let go from that specific tasks. He developed red, scaly lesions across his body, these very painful and horrible protrusions all across his torso, legs, and back. But he really developed a concern because of the children. What happened at that site, it's a roughly 600-acre site where he spread millions of tons of oil and gas industry drilling waste, is a housing development containing 2,500 homes. It's in the process of being built, and an elementary school has already been built, and there are 500 students in that elementary school, and Lee came to me completely destroyed. So now this, I would call this the sister practice of brine spreading. They call it land spreading, and I bring it up because I think to step outside of your zone, I mean, oil and gas, wastewater, it's been applied to roads, it's been normalized in a sense, but when you step outside of your realm and look at what's happening in Texas, which is not so different, land spreading, and then enabling the public to interact with that, I mean, that is legitimately the definition of insane. We are not following logic. The scientific logic, the public health logic has been ignored, and that is a serious situation. I just published an article about it, and new information continues to come out. To go back to brine spreading, we actually have even more concerning contaminants in oil and gas wastewater. There is chromium, arsenic, lead, hydrocarbons, and there is benzene. That's been brought up. One thing folks may not know is that in the mid-1980s, Michigan actually assessed oil and gas wastewater. The Michigan Department of Natural Resources, they were particularly concerned about benzene with good reason. Benzene is a well-known human carcinogen, and there were some interesting comments that came out of that analysis. One is any elevation of benzene is an increase in cancer risk. Why would we be doing that? Putting that into the public sphere. And they also noted that if any other industry were doing that, they would have them in court the next day. It is just an inappropriate situation. Radium. Been brought up today. Radium is just a metal. It's a heavy metal. It's a radioactive heavy metal. There are really strict limits on radium, and I'll get to those in a moment, but I just wanted to convey some of the details that folks in Ohio had already discussed. And I'm just going to do, this is empty garbage can, a very, very small demonstration here. I just want to write numbers down. So ODNR, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, did a really, what I thought was a thorough study of oil and gas wastewater, and they took radium readings across the state, and they found an average radium in the brine that's being spread, right? And it was 1,264, and here's the little unit, picocuries per liter. 1,264. They actually went into Lowe's because there was a product that was being sold at Lowe's, and this is right here in Ohio official reports. It was 1,663 picocuries per liter. So, and this is a significance. I'll get to that in just a moment. So I'm wondering if folks know, I want to ask a question. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has a limit for radium discharges for facilities that they oversee, which would be like a nuclear power plant. They are very concerned about radium. It's a breakdown from one of the same isotopes of uranium that's in oil and gas wastewater, and they have a discharge limit, which means above the limit, and I'll write it down in a moment, above that limit, a nuclear power plant would not be able to discharge into the environment. I'm just wondering if any of y'all know what that limit is. It's 60. 60 is also the limit at which you can legitimately call a material radioactive waste. It's different for each radioactive isotope. For radium, that is 60. So what I had done, and again, I'm not trying to shame anyone. I'm trying to, convey my research in a powerful way. I had a bucket that I had brought in of oil and gas brine, and I really want to thank this officer of the law over here, because he did what was a courageous and a thorough and just an absolutely appropriate thing. He came over to me and he said, "What's in that bucket?" I said, "It's oil and gas brine for a small demonstration for this hearing." He said, "Well, we don't know what's in that." Now, that's absolutely correct. It came from Ohio, so we can know that the average radium, 1,264 picocuries per liter. So it is technically radioactive wastewater. It's radioactive wastewater, and I'll tell you that I had it in my hotel room just for a couple hours. I left, I came back, and the smell in the room was so noxious that I almost passed out right there, and I had to take it out and put it in a safer place. I kept it outside for the night. Now, if that material, and again, this was appropriate. I think if the legislators, and again, not trying to shame y'all, but try and think of this, if the legislators in Ohio had had this sort of due diligence, we wouldn't even be here. You would have asked the question, what's in it? Is it harmful? And you take it out of the building and get rid of it and do not put it in the public sphere. And that's 1.5 gallons of the stuff. Each truck contains 4,200 gallons, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of gallons spread each year. So I think my final point is, if it's too toxic at 1.5 gallons to just sit in this room in a bucket, how are you possibly allowing the practice of spreading it on the roads? I deeply appreciate the opportunity. Thank you all.
Any questions? Yes, Senator Liston.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your impactful research and testimony. This question I'm asking you, but I'll put it out there for anyone who has experience. What sort of response are you getting at local levels? Because it seems like some of the choices are being made in local governments. We talked about penny wise, maybe, but pound foolish, even just financially. But it feels like this information is something that might change behavior locally. So
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's a great question. And I'll start nationally and internationally because I think it provides important context, and that's why I gave the Texas example. When I convey this practice to people in other states and also other countries, because my reporting is international, they're absolutely shocked. But they're looking at the science alone. Locally, as it's been mentioned, this is a practice that has been done for years, and things that have a past history become normalized, become part of the culture, essentially. So I think locally, initially, when people are not aware, they tend to think that this is not so problematic. But I have found that as people learn what's behind the practice and also what's behind the material, and again, I'm really happy the bucket's not here, but if you were to just open it up and smell it, you get an immediate reaction. And so I think as people learn and understand what really is in this substance and that there's really interesting alternatives, I've seen an incredible groundswell of opposition against this practice. And, I've written about a lot of different topics, and I'm just trying to put the information out there. I'm not on social media. I have a really old school phone. I think much more important than sending a tweet is doing things just like this, presenting to the people. Not all the things I report on cause people to, activate, but this issue absolutely has. And I think it's appropriate. And it's across, by the way, across political lines, across socioeconomic lines, across cultural lines. I think people have really taken to this issue. And that goes right down to, certain local officials who have thought of other creative ways that they can keep their communities safe from snow and ice and still not put this particular material on the roads.
all right, thank you.
Yeah.
For Hicks Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here for your testimony. You gave the example of the gentleman in Texas and the concern by doing the land spreading. And then you also brought it forward as talking about the building of properties on this land. So do you have any information about how long this substance is? I'll just say it's toxic or radioactive. Does it ever dissipate or what have you?
It's a great question. So the primary radionuclide, which is just an isotope, a form of an element, and this is a radioactive element, the primary one of concern is radium-226, which has a half-life of 1,600 years. So that's a long time, and I think part of the issue, and there's some great researchers trying to figure this out, but when you spread this stuff on the roads, where does it go? Does it stay in the dust and then get blown up? Does it run off into the culverts and the creeks? Science and the scientists are still trying to figure that out, and of course it's an important question, but we do know that somewhere in the environment it's accumulating and it's lasting. Yeah.
Other questions? Got a couple questions for you. So where did you get this brine that you brought today?
It's not so far away, and it was obtained what I think is legal and appropriate means. There's an area where a community has a facility essentially where they have brine held, and then it's used for application.
Did you buy it from them, or they give it to you, or?
No, I think obtained. I didn't buy it. No.
Well, how did you get it? I mean, if I went to a township house and looked at their equipment in their garage, I wouldn't have a clue what was brine or what was
it's a great question. So in some places it's, if you follow a truck on a public road, you can collect a sample. That's one place to do it. But I learned that there is actually a location, and it's, to me, a very concerning location because it's right next to what seems to be like a children's park with swimming pools.
But did you get it out the back of a truck?
Which there? No, there's a pit. There's an open pit in this community. An open pit, yeah.
Okay. And do you believe this brine that you had is a carcinogen?
I wouldn't love, but I would love to bring it back in because you could take a smell. So again, I mean,
No, is it a carcinogen?
well, it contains benzene, and benzene is a carcinogen. So yeah, the way we have to work.
Did you bring it in an open container? Was it fully contained?
Oh, it was fully contained. It was absolutely fully contained, and I
And
think
what kind of bucket did you have it in?
it was a secure bucket gotten from Home Depot. Yeah,
So like a 5-gallon bucket that.
I think it was probably more like 3 gallons. Yeah,
And it had a lid on it?
it had a lid. Yeah, very secure.
So how far in did you get with it?
Oh, well, it was in this room.
So you were assuring me that you didn't spill it, it didn't evaporate, nobody breathed.
Well,
it.
I mean, I appreciate your concern
if it's
for
a
like my
carcinogen-
little gallon and a half, but this is what's being spread continuously
Are
on
you
roads in
assuring me
Ohio.
none of this carcinogen material was spilled or dispersed in this room or the hallway? in this
Without a
building?
doubt, none of it was spilled or
None of
dispersed.
it, okay.
None of it.
I just want to establish that.
Absolutely.
If
No,
you
thank
feel it's a carcinogen, it's not something I would bring in, but anyway,
Well,
I want to make sure.
asking
we're
those
safe.
questions, I hope that
So I want to make sure everybody here is
I
safe.
hope you follow that logic with the bill because there's a lot more material being spread into the public sphere. But I appreciate the questions. They're great questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Next up, Bryn Bird, Ohio Farmers Union. Bryn Bird? Okay, we can come back to her if she comes in out of the hallway. Lorraine McCosker, Morning Bird Gardens. Lorraine McCosker? Okay, we can come back to her if we need to. Edward Oshansky, citizen of Ohio. Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Schaefer, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, Senator Liston. I appreciate the opportunity to provide testimony on SB 329, the bill to ban spreading oil and gas waste from conventional oil wells on our roads. My name is Eddie Olshansky. I run the organization Trash Fish on the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, where I, along with hundreds of my volunteers per year, come together to learn about and get hands-on to remove just some of the pollution entering Lake Erie, the drinking water supply of nearly 12 million people that I happen to care deeply for. While Trash Fish mainly focuses on plastic pollutants degrading in and poisoning our waterways, I see striking parallels between the plastics crisis and the continued use of brine as the de-icer and dust suppressant on Ohio's roadways, as they're both essentially just rebranded, leftover toxic waste of the oil and gas industry that our communities are forced to assume the responsibility and risks of. The blatantly obvious issue to me, and one that I believe would be obvious to every single one of your constituents if they were to find out what's actually in these solutions, is that against the recommendations of multiple state agencies, the legislature currently permits the sale and spread of a toxic, carcinogenic waste material on the grounds where our families and friends live, into the air our families and friends breathe, and where it eventually flows into the water our family and friends drink. This is, again, years after the Ohio Department of Health recommended against its use due to the, and I quote, increased levels of human exposure to radiation. I'm not sure there's any voter in the great state of Ohio that would be in support of increased levels of exposure to radiation. On second thought, I guess I can think of one very specific kind of person that would support the use of a toxic waste material from the oil and gas industry that has been proven harmful to the people, the environment, and organisms of Ohio. That is, those who have found a way to profit from it. Whether they're profiting by way of having a sly, cheap, and easy way to rid themselves of the economic and/or ecological responsibility to treat, store, or ship their waste to another state, because again, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources considers this waste too radioactive to discharge in our state, or those who have found that they can buy that waste for cheap, rebrand it, and sell it to our local municipalities to make a quick buck with an absolute disregard to the health and safety of our communities. I agree with Republican Representative Kevin Ritter that passing Senate Bill 329 banning the use of oil and gas waste brine as a de-icer and dust suppressant is, and I quote, common sense legislation. I believe it's finally time the rest of the state follows the lead of the Ohio Department of Transportation and stops the use of these harmful chemicals in our state. Unfortunately, it seems y'all are tasked with making that happen and standing up for the health of the many instead of the profits of the few. It's time that we as Ohio citizens stop accepting the burden of oil and gas industry's waste. I appreciate your time here today, and thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you so much for coming in. Any questions? Very good.
Appreciate
Thank you
it,
again. Next time, Tim Kettler, citizen of Ohio. Welcome.
Thank you. I tend to get rather passionate when I write, so I have to read fast. And I'm also glad I didn't bring any of the bottles of brine I have home in my work shed that we collected in front of his house, from the area that he used to eat the dirt in the road as a kid, like little boys do. But good afternoon, Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chair Kaler, and Ranking Member Hicks Hudson. Thank you for your time and this opportunity to offer our participation in decisions concerning the banning of the spreading of radioactive oil and gas wastewater from conventional oil and gas wells on public roadways in the state of Ohio. My name is Tim Kettler. I'm a proud resident of Monroe Township, Conshohocken County. I'm a 40-year wastewater professional and certified Ohio EPA Class 1 water reclamation specialist. I'm also president of the board of directors of Conshohocken Environmental and Community Awareness Incorporated, a community nonprofit organization that I helped found. Both my professional and volunteer work is studying and treating the polluted wastewater we distributed to the surface of the ground and above the uppermost source of drinking water. As I said above, I'm proud of my home. It's built of sandstone, on sandstone, surrounded by sandstone for miles in any direction. It's beautiful and it makes for a solid road foundation, though one riddled with major fissures, fractures, faults, and cracks. The kind of defects I have to be concerned about when treating sanitary wastewater professionally. The same holds true for any material applied to the surface of the ground above our drinking water. You can go one way out my drive and the neighbors are using well water from old shallow wells. Go the other way and a few are using natural springs. Our community, Conshohocken County, has immense freshwater aquifer, abundant lakes, rivers, and springs, not to mention the headwaters of the Muskingum River, a freshwater paradise. I'd like to acknowledge some universally accepted facts in this matter. Oil and gas wastewater is radioactive. Oil and gas wastewater has been and is being spread directly on the surface of dirt roads in my community as a dust suppressant, including in front of my home on the road above our pond, draining directly to our domestic water source. Oil and gas wastewater is spread indiscriminately and in violation of the rules. Oil and gas wastewater migrates everywhere. It overruns the road in a heavy rain and into the drainage for our water source. It runs into ditches, culverts, and unnamed tributaries known as the waters of the state of Ohio. The heavy nature of the salts in this wastewater weigh down the dusty surface, creating some compaction, hoping to control the dust. But a few days later, the opposite begins to happen and the dirt road surface begins to rapidly break up. Although the salts work for a period when relatively damp, they limit adhesion between fine clay particles, actually making things worse. But hey, at least it's free. And our poor townships love free. What about that dust? The highlight of my day is when our grandson comes home on the school bus when he is visiting. He jumps off all smiles and then here comes that dust cloud following the school bus. Summer or winter. It engulfs us both, covering our hair, clothes, shoes, and skin, his books, his lunchbox, his backpack. He has just gained a new traveling companion, radioactivity. I wear it constantly too. Every time I crawl under a vehicle to work on it, the dust clumps are in my eyes, in my mouth, in my nose and ears. The radioactivity is on me everywhere I go. And now it may be your traveling companion too. We just don't know, but I think I do. But there's a simple reason why we are spreading this radioactive waste, why we are injecting it, why we are burying it, why we are dumping it in dry creek beds west of the 95th meridian. It's because there's just too damn much of the stuff to treat safely and still make obscene profits for the energy billionaires. So instead of treating the problem, we exempted it through the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act 50 years ago. But we can begin to correct these mistakes through your affirmative support for Senate Bill 329. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking to you for that leadership now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Very good. Thanks so much for coming in. Next up, William Lyons, citizen of Ohio. And welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chair Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. I'm indeed thankful that Senate Bill 329, a bill to ban spreading of oil and gas brine waste on Ohio's roads, is finally getting proponent testimony. In 1986, 1 year after the state of Ohio sanctioned oil and gas brine spreading on Ohio's roads as a de-icer and dust suppressant, it was discovered, as mentioned, that brine contained high levels of benzene. And it was mentioned that that was alarming enough they didn't know about the radioactivity. It became so alarming that the Ohio protection agencies, namely the Ohio Department of Health, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and the Ohio EPA, all lobbied for a ban on oil and gas brine spreading, but the practice continued. So, and between 2017 and 19, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources decided to test the brine, what they call brine euphemistically, but of course we know it's not just salt water, from, I think it was 151 wells throughout Ohio, and they found that they had alarmingly high levels of radium-226 and 228, way beyond, as you've already heard, the numbers that are so-called legal to spread. So after 40 years of spreading this toxic and radioactive brine on Ohio's roads with the acquiescence of state officials, the people are really clamoring to end this poisonous practice. So the use of mystic term, they call it as brine, like it's just, of course it is very salty, but along with that has been mentioned some things that it contains heavy metals like cadmium, arsenic, lead, mercury, and then of course benzene we mentioned, but most concerning is the radium at extremely high levels of 226, 228. Their actual test revealed this. So the U.S. EPA set a drinking limit of water as only 5 picocuries per liter for radium-226 and 228 combined, 5. And the Ohio Administrative Code set the legal limit for the combined radium-226 and 228 at 120 picocuries per liter. But the combined level of those two radium isotopes in the wells, the conventional wells that were tested by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, was almost 10 times that limit, like 1,182 picocuries per liter, and even had a well as high as almost 10,000. So this is, it was overwhelming. So the problem is, why is radium-226 and 228 so dangerous? One is that it's water soluble. Two, that our bodies treat it like it's calcium. So it's readily deposited in our bones and teeth. It also binds well to clay soils. So when it's used as a dust suppressant, the clay particles contain the radium. And of course, once it's dried, that dust can become a carrier for radium to enter the lungs. So once it enters the body, that's the problem. Through ingestion or through inhalation, it bombards, mutates our cells into cancer for the rest of our lives because it only becomes half as radioactive as it was in 1600 years. And that means in 3,200 years, it'll be a quarter as radioactive as it was, and so on. So it will stay radioactive for tens of thousands of years. Since 1985, millions of barrels of this toxic radioactive cocktail called brine have been deposited on Ohio roads where it's run off and can impact water sources and watersheds. The science is clear that this environmental justice must end, and brine spreading from oil and gas sources must be banned from Ohio for the protection of the people, their environment and nature, and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Seeing none, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Kathy Johns, Sustainable Medina County. And welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. Thank you for allowing us all time to respond here and provide testimony for or on Senate Bill 329. As you've already heard, that oil and gas waste has been said to be radioactive from the experts and is being used as a dust suppressant and road de-icer. So I would like to mention this. I'll leave some things out because a lot has been covered by others already. I think it was Senator Liston. You asked what other communities have heard or done about this. Has anybody done anything about this? Well, I'll tell you, back in 2020, I approached Medina City Council and showed them the experts' testimony and readings and what the ODNR had said. And they, at that time, were using aqua salina, which has radioactive oil and gas waste in it. And they didn't know anything about it, and they were really surprised and asked how I knew, and I had them check with the experts, and John Stolz, who is one of the experts on it. And then the next meeting, they came back and they said, you know what, we have shelves of it. We had just ordered it, and we'd been spreading it in the city of Medina. We would no longer use it, okay? And from there, it went on. We checked with our townships. We went through every township to see which ones were and weren't, and we still had some using it. As of today, Medina County does not use it in their townships or their cities. I don't know about any other cities, but yes, I did let them know. I organized Sustainable Medina County, and we worked really hard to get the word out. So there are cities that will not use it and townships that won't use it because of the highly radioactive content and what it is doing. So with that, I'll just, that was in 2020. Even Channel 5 came and reported on it. It was such a big story. So then let me go on from here. So I too, as an Ohio resident, am concerned about the harm the radioactivity in oil and gas waste is causing, not just residents of Medina County or Ohio, but also it's being transported through Ohio to other communities, other states even. If it's on your car as the brine spreading waste, it's carried through. And when you go through, get your car washed, that's recycled water. So the radioactive water is still being used, okay? And it's still, if you brush your coat with it and you to go in the house, you've got that on you. And that's all particulate matter that you breathe in, that's going in, and it's radioactive. So it's also harming our waterways, our soil, and more importantly, our nature itself. So it's in the air we're breathing, and that particulate matter will go to your lungs. So the birds, bees, insects, and other animals are being contaminated. Your dog might be playing out in the yard, brushes paws into it, playing around, goes in, and he's got that in the carpeting. Then you might have a young child, a baby, crawling on the carpeting. They're breathing that particulate matter, that radioactive particulate matter in, right inside their system. That's not going to go away. So with that, I'd like to say I hope you all, I'll just make it short since everybody's covered a lot more. I gave you all this attachment because I thought viewing it is more than just seeing words on it, how the different ways it can affect in the community. So with that, I'd just like to take note again, please take note again of the attachment. And please protect our children, nature, and the environment in which we all live, and support SB 329. We residents of Ohio are counting on all of you to do the right thing. It's really important. Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions
for the witness?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And the last person I have on my list, Elaine Robertson, Raccoon Creek Environmental. And welcome to committee.
Best for last, right?
Absolutely.
I looked at my watch and when it's 4:39. Mine is not really long, but it is direct. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kaler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee, I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on Senate Bill 329, the bill to ban spreading oil and gas waste from conventional oil wells on roads. My name is Elaine Robertson. I represent the Raccoon Creek Environmental Alliance in Licking County and support the passage of Senate Bill 329. Our environmental group focuses on the Licking County Raccoon Creek area aquifer, which is the main source of water for the villages of Alexandria and Granville, Ohio. Our aquifer is an abundant source of our drinking water and considered one of the most susceptible to toxic damage due to the porous limestone glaciated soil. ORC section 1509.226 was most recently updated in 2013. Studies in 2018 and 2020 showed definitively that there was a radioactive material present in brine from injection wells spread on roadways. It has been banned on certain roadways due to the presence of radioactive material. This portion of the 2013 Ohio Revised Code is outdated and does not include recent information obtained with newer technologies. Most troubling is a loophole in subsection C that says any person other than a political subdivision required to adopt a resolution under Division A of the section or a department, agency, instrumentality of the state or the United States who owns or has a legal right or obligation to maintain a road, street, highway, or other similar land surface may file a plan with the board of the county, but the board need not approve such plans. I know there are citizens concerned with property rights and are against any form of regulations that appear to be government overreach. In this case, multiple studies affirm the dangerous nature of the materials, and citizens are generally alarmed when they learn of the brine's composition. This exposure is dangerous and unnecessary. I urge the Senate to move forward with this bill and gain bipartisan support. Applying radioactive brine to our roads endangers us all and should be banned in Ohio completely without loopholes. The data supports the ban, and we all have the right to live free from radioactive brine exposure. Senate Bill 329 will easily ensure our safety. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. You have questions.
I'm sorry. Yes, we're busy running committee. But anyway, thank you for your testimony. Do you ladies have any questions? Okay. Yes. Okay. Well, if you'd like to come back up and provide any more testimony, go right ahead. We do have one more witness to go to, though.
Senator, I just wanted to, Chairman Schaefer, I just wanted to bring
Please restate your name again.
My name is Anton Krieger.
Okay.
with the Buckeye Environmental Network. I wanted to make the committee aware that I believe that there are a few more verbal testimonies that maybe were submitted on time but not recorded for the list for today. I see a few in the audience that would still like to speak, and I just wanted to make that known to the committee.
Okay. Well, I know of one additional one. So do we have any others that contacted our office?
Unless they listed it
Right here.
only, because we do have a lot of people written
Here.
Okay. Well, let me call up, well, thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me call up next Rebecca Pollard, Buckeye Environmental Network. And Ms. Robertson, thank you so much. I didn't get a chance to say thank you for your testimony. So, welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chair Kaler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. I thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony on SB 329, a long overdue bill to prohibit the spreading of oil and gas waste from conventional oil wells on Ohio roads. My name is Becca Pollard, and I'm a resident of Columbus and the Executive Director of Buckeye Environmental Network. I am speaking today on behalf of myself as an Ohioan and as a parent, but my perspective is informed by what I hear from people all around the state who are concerned about how they and their families may be impacted by exposure to environmental pollutants. I am the mother of a 4-year-old who loves to play outdoors. I often worry about her safety and about what pollutants she is being exposed to. But as a resident of Columbus, I feel fortunate that I don't have to worry about toxic radioactive oil and gas waste on our roads. That is an assurance that every parent in Ohio deserves. But today, many municipalities are still using these dangerous products as a de-icer and dust suppressant, even though safer and more effective alternatives are available. Committee members, I urge you to vote yes on SB 329 so that every parent in Ohio will know that their child can play outdoors in their own neighborhood without being exposed to oil and gas waste brine. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Any questions? Okay. Thank you. Next up. Well, that's all we have for announced testimony. Now I'll open up to the public. So first come, first serve. Please state your name and tell us if you had submitted written testimony, because we probably have it on our iPads.
I have not submitted written testimony, but I have it right here.
And you'll need to fill out a witness slip if you haven't already.
I will.
Thank you.
Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agricultural and Natural Resources Committee. I thank you for the opportunity to testify on Senate Bill 329, which would ban the spreading of radioactive oil and gas waste on Ohio roads. I'm Bill Grulich, a longtime resident of Ohio, live in Lakewood, Ohio. I'm the CEO of Warner G. Smith, a company that has been polymerizing and oxidizing seed oils since 1912. Using fracking waste on dirt roads for dust control is even worse. As radioactive waste breaks down on dirt roads, it becomes airborne, posing a risk to adults, children, pets, and other living organisms. Soybean oil is a fantastic alternative that helps farmers while cleaning up our groundwater, streams, and lakes. The Louis Dreyfus Company supports Ohio farmers by investing more than $500 million in a soybean crushing plant in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, and creating more than 100 jobs. The Louis Dreyfus plant will open this summer and will be able to crush 1.5 million metric tons of soybeans and produce 320,000 metric tons of RBD soybean oil annually. At Warner G. Smith, we support farmers by developing soybean-based formulas to replace radioactive fracking waste on our roads, and we're in testing right now. This does two things. Number one, soybean oil is better for the roads than fracking waste. Number two, the most important thing, it does help Ohio farmers. I ask that you support Ohio farmers and support the passage of Bill 329. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up. And welcome.
Chairman Schaefer, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. I am Marvin Tatar, owner of Molecular Technologies. I brought along a radiation detector for your examination. The radiation detector you have there is adequate to detect the radiation in these brines. It costs about $35. You can get a radiation detector used, and the only reason most of them are discarded is because they don't have fresh batteries. When you put a fresh battery in it, it operates correctly. Okay. One way to take a look at this cost shifting from the oil and gas industry, trying to defray some of their expenses, is to look at how much it costs the state of Ohio in supporting the health for cancer. Okay, certain cancers are caused by not only radium, but its daughter particle, radon. And these cancers have a cost which can be calculated. And I think if the state does that, it'll find that it's about a 10-to-1 ratio. You're allowing the industry to get 1 penny out, and the state has to pay the dime. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? And sir, what was your name, please? Because we don't have a copy of your testimony. Oh, great. And don't forget your machine here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm new here. I've never done this before, so I didn't know how to get on the list. I apologize.
That's okay.
Chairman Schaefer, Vice Chairman Kohler, Ranking Member Hicks Hudson, and members of the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify about Senate Bill 329. My name is D.L. Meckes, and I'm a resident of Lakewood, Ohio. I'm part owner of a specialty chemicals manufacturing company that concentrates on making products that are biosustainable, biorenewable, and biodegradable. I'm here to urge you to ban the use of oil and gas waste brine from hydraulic fracturing on Ohio's roads. This material is not the same as salt water. It's a waste product that can contain benzene, heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, and cadmium, high levels of chloride that damage freshwater ecosystems, and radioactive elements including radium-226 and radium-228. While it's true these things are presently in the ground, they're encased in rock and relatively safe until those rocks are fractured. It's argued that this is a cost-effective, beneficial reuse, but spreading industrial waste on public roads is not reuse, it is disposal. The companies pursuing fracking need to dispose of their waste, not sell it. Long-term cost of water contamination, infrastructure corrosion from high salinity, and public health risks are far more expensive than any short-term cost savings. When these products are spread on rural roads and the equipment is driven back to storage facilities, what drips off the truck kills everything along its path. These products leach into the ground and water supply. I'm old enough to remember the fires on the Cuyahoga River. I was not allowed as a child to even wade in Lake Erie in Cleveland because of the pollution. Relaxing environmental controls is not beneficial to our state. There are alternatives that use soybean oil that do a much better job of dust control, require fewer applications, and do not leach into the fields. If they happen to leach into the fields, it's soybean oil, and it's not toxic. Ohio is a soybean state, and our farmers would benefit from increased soybean sales. We should support our farmers, the land, and our waters. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. And folks, please be sure to fill out a witness slip. You should have one down there somewhere. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. And what is your name?
My name is Carol Apaki, and I'm speaking
Welcome.
for Tracy Lang, who was unable to come here today. Tracy is a physician in our community, and we are both constituents of Senator Schaefer, and we are part of a study of many citizens, thanks to Ben, the Buckeye Environmental Network, in learning about the toxins that are in our gas and oil waste on our roads. And so I'm only, because we're limited in time, I'm just going to read a short excerpt from Dr. Lang. She said that she's very concerned because she sees as a doctor so many cancers that are mysterious sources. And she knows that these chemicals of radium-226 and radium-228 can live as long as 1,600 years. And these chemicals are increasing our cancer risk and other health problems. We can't take it back once it's spread. It's on the roads, in the waterways, in the soil, in our food chain, wildlife, and in us. This issue is much like asbestos. Once widely used, it's now known to be dangerous. We need to understand more fully the public health and the environmental risk, and to give science a seat at the table. She says, I've cared for many patients with 100% preventable asbestos-induced cancers. I've cared for many patients with lung cancers who never smoked a day in their life. Their only risk factor was radon exposure. It is our duty to do everything we can to help prevent these very preventable terminal illnesses. Ohioans deserve protection from toxic and radioactive materials on our roads. And we implore you to please pay attention and support Senate Bill 329. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? All right, thank you again. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Through the chair, there's two questions that came up. One was rock salt that's being harvested by
Identify
Cargill.
yourself again, if you would, please, sir.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Silveria Cajano. A question about rock salt being harvested by Cargill underneath Cleveland. Rock salt in of itself is not radioactive. The salt that is radioactive is the salts that come up from the black shales where oil and gas production is being found, where oil and gas is being found for production. The second question was, why don't people know more about this? And that is because there's been a great greenwashing sale of this material so that they can privatize their profits and publicize their losses. They're getting rid of it for free instead of putting it into an injection well. And people just aren't that educated. What we're doing here, talking to your distinguished body, is education. And that's what we need to do all over the state. And if you tell people what we're telling you and ask them if they want this spread on their driveway, they're going to look at you and say, no way. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Last call for witnesses. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Members, I will point you to the 51 other written-only witnesses we have that are on your iPads and available through the committee portal. And there being no further business for substitute for this legislation, Senate Bill 329, that will constitute the second hearing on 329. Just a couple of comments. I do want to introduce JT Batchelor. JT, stand up. He's our new legislative aide in the Senate Agriculture and Environment Committee. And JT, looking forward to great things and glad to have you on board. Also, I want to say thanks to our sergeants at arms for keeping us safe in the room and the building. Very, very perceptive and very, very good at their job. So I want to say publicly thanks to them for everything they do to keep us in good shape. So there being no further business for the committee, at least I don't think there is. We are adjourned. And thank you again, everybody.